Canada 1999, mostly British Columbia, some Alberta to Edmonton and back. Summary: we spent 25 days in British Columbia and a bit of Alberta. We took 185 photos, all of which are included in the summary slideshows. Our trip to Canada in 1999 was from the 11th of August to the 4th of September. 1925 days in our hired all-drive classic 3003 berth motorhome combined with a hire car at the beginning for use to get around Vancouver Island and do the inside passage loop from Port Hardy to Prince Rupert and then back down to Vancouver to swap the car for the camper van. When we had the car we stayed in B&Bs mostly and some motels. Clearly once we had the van we stayed at campsites. Initially we started in Vancouver downtown in what was definitely not a nice area but was cheap and afforded us the opportunity to see the city of Vancouver quite easily. Then across on the ferry to Vancouver Island where we went to Tofino to do some whale watching in the Salish Sea. Actually saw a pod of orcas, just magical, from our boat that left Telegraph Cove. After returning from Victoria, Vancouver Island and picking up the motorhome we went to see the Rockies, then much more of British Columbia, eventually traveling up to Edmonton in Alberta to visit our pals David and Kathy and family. Magical times with Doug, who was 15 at that stage. Fishing and chopping logs for our wild campfire cooking was a true highlight. We stayed in some very remote campsites and managed to avoid the bears. In summary, some of the highlights and places visited were Victoria, Vancouver Island, Vancouver City, Burnaby, West Vancouver, Cypress Provincial Park, Inside Passage by Ferry, Prince Rupert. We drove much on the fab remote Highway 16 through BC, back down through some fabulous scenery to Vancouver, swapped car for motorhome and then across to friends in Edmonton. Plus we saw at various stages and in no particular order, Prince George, the BC ferry, Saw-Wasson through US waters, and various islands too. Swartz Bay. Saw-Wasson Terminal is a 36 kilometers drive from downtown Vancouver and is located at the southwest end of Highway 17 in Delta. Sailings departing from Saw-Wasson provide service to Swartz Bay, Victoria, Duke Point, Nanaimo, and the Southern Gulf Islands. Visit the Saw-Wasson Quay for shopping and a range of food and beverage options. On Vancouver Island we visited Sydney, Cassidy, stayed in Duncan, Crofton, Swartz Bay, Lake Cowichan, Port Renfrew, Nanu's Bay, Port Alberni, Beaver Creek, Long Beach, Tofino, and then returned to the island's capital Victoria, which is just such a lovely place with the historic Empress Hotel. We returned via the fabulous Shawnigan Lake. We also visited Sook on the island where our B&B landlady told us about the replica Captain James Cook ship the Endeavour on its reenactment voyage. Just wonderful, especially as Captain Cook is our hero and we have tried on our travels to visit many of the places he went to, from Middlesbrough to 1770, Big Tick. Plus we remember the sordid Patricia Hotel, North Sarnic, Cordova Bay, Thetis Lake Regional Park, Esquimalt, Millstream, Squamish, Whistler, Banff, Pemberton, Mount Currie, Lillooet, 70,100,150 Mile House, Quesnel, Fraser Lake, Burns Lake, Chitnaduix River Provincial Park, Hazelton, Seven Sisters Provincial Park, Key Manus and all the wall murals, bit like the place in New Zealand called Katy, Giant Sequoias, McBride, Athabasca Falls, Whitewater Rapids, Macmillan Provincial Park, the Canopy Bridge at Grouse Mountain and the Lumberjack Games display there, the Fraser River, Gaslight Jack and Granville Island. Ferries galore, Moraine Lake, Robson Bight, Banff Springs Hotel. Talk about posh. Jasper National Park. We camped in Kamloops where despite the time of year one of the residents in a caravan had their Christmas decorations up. Bizarre but very festive. Kelowna. The Pacific Rim National Park on Vancouver Island was spectacular. We camped at Gold River and visited Campbell River. Later we discovered Annie has current relatives living there. Shame we didn't know at the time. Strathcona Park. We then drove up to Port Hardy, staying in this old house B&B there before getting up very early to travel on the ferry up to Prince Rupert. This was the famed Inside Passage. We headed up the coast, having set sail from Port Hardy through the magnificent glacial fjords of the Inside Passage to the stunning and wild destination of Prince Rupert. It passes through the Queen Charlotte Sound, but for us the weather sadly was appalling, so we were a bit restricted in what we managed to see. We stayed at the Tall Trees B&B in Prince Rupert, run by the lovely Kathy Butterfield, who was so welcoming and told us quite a bit about the local area. Traveling back down to Vancouver in the car, we stayed at a B&B in 100 Mile House, having had a quick look around Prince George after leaving Kathy. On the 22nd of August we made our way back to Vancouver, having seen Whistler the previous day. Remember mountain bikers coming hurtling down the now snow-clear mountain sides? Frightening. Even in my heyday I would never have had the bottle to travel quite so fast. Overnight we stayed in a B&B in Squamish. We then swapped the car for the motorhome before heading off to Edmonton. In the motorhome we visited Banff, Lake Louise, which is where sadly our water tank came detached from the underside of the hire van. A very kind Canadian stopped and applied a rope he had to it to strap it up enough for us to get back into the town of Lake Louise, where we took it to a garage, having rung the hire company and had it welded back on. We kept the receipt so we could claim back later. En route we also saw Kootenay, Waterton, Rogers Pass National Park, Skunk Cabbage Boardwalk, seaplanes over Vancouver North Harbour, spray can art, bungee jumping, not us just watching, near Nanaimo, Yoho National Park, where we visited and went for a swim in the Radium Hot Water Springs pool. It may have been chilly outside, but in the water was heavenly. We also saw the Columbia Icefields Park, where we traveled on a snowmobile /coach called the Ice Explorer out to the Athabasca Glacier, one of the Icefields' 5 toes. Do remember them specifically telling us all to stay within the perimeter rope for our safety. Folk had died falling down the many crevasses. A foolish tourist in our party didn't follow this advice and hoped over the fence to get a better picture. He was lucky. We also saw Aspen Grove, Artxan at Hazelton, the wonderful Butchart Gardens, so loved that, what an experience. Cathedral Grove, lots of wildlife along the roadway's edge, especially in the Rockies National Park, fishing on Nicola Lake outside Kamloops, Glacier National Park, Sulphur Mountain, which we took a cable car known as the gondola to the top of, amazing views looking back down at Banff. Keef of course got his Hard Rock Cafe t-shirt from Banff, why not? Smile. We also took the van into Calgary, but it was just so busy we decided not to stay long and headed off to Edmonton. Remember David clearly saying when we camped some 300 miles down the road, "Hey, you were so nearby." Canadians have a different view of distance. Their country is just so huge in comparison to the UK. Also visited West Ed Mall. Amazing what was in there. Annie going down the hugely deep water slide is one memory. The other is denting the side of the van on a bollard in the car park, which I didn't see. Oh dear. We eventually drove back to Calgary to hand the van in there and did a deal on receipt against busted water tank and dent in van, so quits no charge for either party. Result: All Drive Hire Company gave us a lift to Calgary Airport, part of our one-way hire agreement, and we flew back into Manchester, I think via KeefHWebDesigns in Iceland, but that may have been on the way out, can't remember. But what I do remember is buying the Reykjavik t-shirt from the Hard Rock Cafe in the airport teehee and then home to Nottingham. A lovely trip with some great memories and shared with Doug in his teenage years. Craig was in Spain with his mates. That's all folks. I think it's quite enough, but memories reconstructed in 2022 by KeefHWebDesigns. Thanks for listening.